The great mistake that broke our dimension 400 years ago. Back in the 16th century, at the height of the Elizabethan age, one of the most brilliant minds in England set his sights on a quest that would echo for centuries. He was a mathematician, an astronomer, a navigator, and a trusted confidant to Queen Elizabeth I. His name was John Dee, and his ambition wasn't just to map the globe or the stars, but to chart the unseen world. He wanted to speak to angels, and according to his own meticulous diaries, he did. But what if the voices he heard weren't angels? What if, in his pursuit of divine wisdom, he and his partner made a catastrophic error, one that opened a door in the very fabric of our reality? This is the story of a great mistake, a forbidden language, and the horrifying possibility that a door was opened 400 years ago that was never fully closed. What if the firewall protecting our dimension isn't made of fire and code, but of silence? And what if, 4 centuries ago, someone was given the password? The story of John Dee and Edward Kelly isn't just history, it's a cautionary tale. Some theologians and occultists believe their work wasn't a conversation with heaven, but a deception that compromised our world in a fundamental way. They weren't just receiving a language. They were being taught how to dismantle a lock without ever being told what it was meant to contain: the Queen's philosopher. To understand the mistake, you first have to understand the man. John Dee was no fringe lunatic muttering in an alley. He was a certified genius, a polymath who stood at the pinnacle of Renaissance intellect. After studying at St. John's College, he became one of the original fellows of Trinity College, Cambridge, upon its founding. At a time when science and magic were still blurry, Dee mastered both. Reports from the era say his lectures on mathematics in Paris were so popular, they filled the halls to overflowing. He advised on navigation and wrote influential works for the explorers who were expanding England's reach across the globe. He was one of the first and most vocal proponents of a British Empire, a term he is often credited with coining. Queen Elizabeth I was said to have called him "my philosopher," and he served as a trusted advisor on matters of state and science. It's a popular legend that he even selected the most astrologically auspicious date for her coronation. It's also reported that in secret correspondence with the Queen, he used a special eyes-only symbol, which some have since linked to the legendary 007 code, though that remains a popular myth. Dee possessed one of the largest private libraries in England, a collection of thousands of books and manuscripts. But for all his knowledge of the material world, Dee felt something was missing. He grew convinced that true wisdom could only come from a higher source, God's own messengers, the angels. The problem was, he couldn't hear them. He needed a medium, a scryer, someone who could gaze into a crystal and see what he could not. And in 1582, that someone arrived at his door. The scryer and the spirits. His name was Edward Kelly, and where Dee was a respected scholar, Kelly was a far more shadowy figure. Kelly arrived at Dee's home with a dubious reputation, described as a flamboyant character. Historical accounts allege that he was a forger, and some stories even claim he'd had his ears cropped as a punishment, a disfigurement he supposedly hid under a cap. But Kelly had a gift that Dee desperately needed. He claimed he could see and hear spirits in a scrying stone. Their partnership began, and the spiritual conferences, as Dee called them, became the obsession that would define their lives. For hours on end, Kelly would stare into a piece of polished obsidian or a crystal, relaying what he saw to Dee, who furiously documented every detail. These journals, which survive to this day, are the primary source for everything that follows. According to Dee's records, the communications were not simple conversations. The spiritual beings, as Kelly described them, began to reveal the foundations of a completely unknown language. Dee called it angelical, the original tongue spoken by Adam in paradise. Later, a cult tradition would dub it Enochian. Dee believed this was the lost key, the language that held the secrets of creation itself. The angels allegedly dictated this language, complete with its own unique alphabet and grammar, to the two men. But this was more than just an academic exercise. This language was a tool. It was functional. And the angels were about to provide the operating manual, the angelical keys. What the spiritual beings dictated next formed the core of this dangerous new system, a series of 19 poetic and powerful verses known as the angelical keys. These weren't prayers. According to the records, they were invocations. They were sonic keys designed to open the gates to other dimensions or spiritual realms, which later occultists would systematize as the 30 ethers. Each key, when recited in the angelical tongue, was intended to act as an engine to breach the veil separating humanity from these other worlds. This is where the idea of the great mistake begins to form. According to Dee's own complex notes, there was a concern that the calls were delivered in a way to prevent their misuse, with some accounts suggesting they were given backwards. The stated reason was one of safety. The beings warned that to recite them correctly would unleash forces that neither Dee nor Kelly could control. This detail, straight from the source of the story, is a chilling admission. The creators of the system were explicitly warning its users of its inherent power. Modern theological critiques offer a terrifying interpretation. From a traditional Christian perspective, trying to contact spiritual entities outside of approved religious channels is spiritually perilous. In this view, the beings Kelly was communicating with were not angels at all, but imposters, deceivers exploiting human ambition. From this perspective, the Enochian system wasn't a gift from God. It was a Trojan horse. The angels weren't offering wisdom. They were offering a weapon disguised as a dictionary. They gave humanity a set of keys without revealing the true nature of the locks. They handed over, in metaphorical terms, the administrator password to our reality's firewall and tricked two ambitious men into creating a backdoor, the fallout and the price. The collaboration between Dee and Kelly grew more intense and bizarre. Their travels took them across Europe, where they sought the patronage of kings and emperors, including Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II. But their message was often met with skepticism, and their partnership began to fracture. The breaking point, as documented by Dee, was a shocking angelic command. The spirits allegedly demanded that the two men share everything, including their wives. This disturbing directive severed their collaboration. Dee, disillusioned, eventually returned to England, while Kelly remained on the continent, his life spiraling into chaos as he failed to deliver on promises of alchemy. Kelly would later die in prison after an escape attempt. For John Dee, the return home was devastating. While he was away, his magnificent library at Mortlake, the heart of his life's work, had been plundered. Rather than a single mob, it seems his own brother-in-law, who was entrusted with its care, allowed much of it to be sold off and carried away. Dee was heartbroken. The political climate had also shifted. His patron, Queen Elizabeth I, passed away, and her successor, King James I, was famously opposed to magic and sorcery. Dee's influence waned, and the great scholar spent his final years in poverty, dying in either 1608 or early 1609, an open door. But the system he recorded did not die with him. Elements of Enochian magic were later significantly edited, reinterpreted, and integrated by esoteric orders like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, ensuring its survival. And with its continued practice came whispers of its dangers. These are not verifiable facts, but subjective reports from within the communities that practice it. Some practitioners describe the energy released by the Enochian calls as immense and difficult to control. There are personal accounts linking its practice to psychological instability, runs of bad luck, or a feeling of being watched. These experiences are often attributed to a failure to use proper protective methods or a misunderstanding of the forces being contacted. Theological critics and even some occultists, like Paul Foster Case, voiced concerns that the system was inherently incomplete and dangerous. The fear, from this perspective, is that Dee and Kelly did not receive a complete spiritual path, but a fragment, a powerful but unstable piece of a larger puzzle. This brings us back to our central, unsettling question. Was the work of John Dee and Edward Kelly a genuine communion with angels, a brilliant hoax by a con man, or something else entirely? Was it a metaphorical great mistake, an act of spiritual pride that opened a connection to entities that were not what they claimed to be? The historical record tells us what happened. Theological critiques offer a stark warning about what might have been happening behind the scenes, and the anecdotal reports from modern times suggest a lingering consequence. We are left with a 400-year-old mystery. The story of John Dee is a testament to the timeless human desire to peek behind the curtain of reality. But it also serves as a chilling possibility that sometimes, when you knock on a door to another world, something you did not expect might just answer. And it might leave the door open when it's done. What do you believe? Were these divine messengers, clever imposters, or something far stranger? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoy diving into the intersections of history and mystery, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation.